I know. I know. Here we go. Here we go. Did you know you might be treating the wrong hair loss? Did you know that? You might be treating the wrong hair loss. I can't believe it. With that and more, ladies and gentlemen, here is the hair wire. And welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Hair Wire, the place where you, my friends, get hair smart. I'm your host, Sergio Cardona, alongside with Carrie Jared. Carrie, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. I had an awesome week with car shows and awesome old cars and hot rods. Oh, it was amazing. So I'm lit up right now. Have my cocktail.
For those of us who love cars, I envy you right now.
Oh yeah, we had fun. Me and my husband are car people. We were in a car show. It's our first time bringing one of our own cars to the show, so it was really fun to be on the other side and be a part of everything. Yeah, and if those who were wondering, we had a mint 1992 Thunderbird Super Coupe with factory rims, everything. It was beautiful. And we also souped up the stereo too, because we had to play all of our old gangster type of rap and 90s hip hop. It was awesome. A lot of nostalgia for everybody in me and Sergio's age group. There was a lot of people just pumping us. And then one fun thing is, I remember when I was a kid going to car shows with my dad, and my dad was a gearhead too. I was always drawn to the cars from the late 70s, early 80s, or mid 70s. And you could see now all the kids that are in their 20s when I was that age are now going towards the cars from our era. Yep. So it's very cool to see that. All these kids in their 20s, like, what is that? Is that a Thunderbird? So it was really cool to kind of see the reverse. It was fun.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, how generational things move on and how people take on it. And I mean, it's incredible. The same thing with fashion, and as you mentioned, music, and we see that music vibe from our generation coming back again. I remember being a kid, listening to my father's music, and back then it was about their music, and and now it's
Beatles.
It's incredible. Now we know we're getting older.
You have to say it was so funny because Carl was like, make sure you put the radio edition when we did the cruise. So the cruise, there was like 500 cars that go through my city and make a parade of all the cars. And so of course we're like, hey, we have to play the music from that era. And then Carl was like, wait, you gotta make sure it's the radio edition. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So we put on the radio edition, not thinking, because obviously for kids. But then as we were driving home with our own kids and nobody else was around, we're like, okay, let's play what we would have heard. Our music was naughty. Oh, naughty. I was like, I told Carl, like, I'm going to change it now because I don't think our kids should hear the lyrics in some of the songs here. Yeah, we had some naughty music, but I love it.
Who said that? Who said our generation?
Oh, yeah.
That never happened. I deny it.
So fun.
And yet we have the nerves to say that today's music is trash. I mean,
well, it is. Well,
because I remember my parents saying the same thing about our music. So,
but ours is naughty. If you see or listen to those lyrics, you're just like,
come on. I have to say, my parents' music back then, there were some naughty lyrics back then, and they will be like, oh, that's so romantic. They're talking about, doing the stuff.
And our full on talk about it in public, really.
And then you got Boys to Men. I'll make love to you.
Right?
Anyhow, today's show is about you're treating the wrong hair loss. You're treating the wrong hair loss. And today we stumble upon a case, and we like to talk about this particular case. And it's a post from a member of our Intelligent Fluvian support group. And of course, we would like to show pictures, but we can't at this moment. But here's a very interesting story. And I want you to pay close attention to it because, this might be your story. And we know a lot of people that may be going through something similar. And the thing is, you have to understand whenever we talk about Italian fluvium and situations in that order, um, it's always a wild card. Italian fluvium is the hair loss that it really drives the world mad, because whenever you're talking about a particular type of hair loss, basically all other types of hair loss, they're very straightforward, but Italian fluvium is so cunning, so different. And it could start as a type of hair loss due to stress, and then become a hormonal type of hair loss, and then transition into a nutritional type of hair loss, and then go back again to stress. And it's a different animal. That's what it is with Telgen fluvium. That is why Telgen fluvium is the largest form of hair loss that anywhere in the world you could find, because everyone in the world is affected by it. And so, because of it, it's tricky. It's extremely tricky, and you need to really, really pay close attention to it, to understand where is it coming from, and where is it going, in the future. Okay, so there are a lot of details in it, and of course, we're not going to be able to cover it all, but we want to, prepare you for what's about to happen. All right, that's the main thing here. All right, so. Carrie, you got the story near you, right?
Um,
If not,
I
I can read it.
can.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I got it. Okay. So here's this young lady. She says that she started losing her hair in January of this year, right? She says that she has lost about 60% of her hair, and still is losing. Now she has a few pictures that she wanted to show, etc. But she says that she feels like the new growth, that she still has new growth, but that new growth is still very short. Now I want to address this very first part before we move on to the next area. Why, Carrie, will people who are suffering from hair loss will see short hairs? Why do you think that is? Why will they see short hairs if they are experiencing hair loss?
Well, it could be quite a few different reasons why. It could be
Mhm.
it could be breakage because the hair is brittle, and if the hair has grown and then has like a brittle breaking point, depending on the season of their life when that hair was growing, like that could cause breakage. It could be the new growth coming in, and the new growth is
Mhm.
coming in, and it's just you have to give it time to grow. Obviously, your hair only grows an average of a quarter of an inch a month. So if you
Exactly.
have long hair, you're going to need to make sure that time takes for it to get from A to B. So on average, I always tell people, if you're cutting and maintaining your hair properly, and if your hair grows on the average length, you'll grow about the length of I'm aging myself, a DVD or a CD length with that, what, 10, 8 inches, 10 inches a year. um, and so you have to consider too, like if you have long hair like myself, for me to get all that hair back, I'm going to have to make sure I have to trim it for it to catch it up. But also it's going to take time for that hair to get here to here, because this hair is probably about 4 years worth of hair growth. And so you have to
Mhm.
consider that. You also might see the different sizes of the hair. So you might notice that the hair looks miniaturized. And I find a lot of times too, we have a misinformation that if you see miniaturized hair, the explanation here, people automatically think it's androgenetic alopecia. But the thing is if you don't have a healthy scalp, and the scalp is not supple enough for the hair to grow, is going to cause a smaller follicle for it to grow, making the hair look more miniaturized than it is. And that could be due to calcium buildup. It could be due to tension and like your skin being too tight, where you're literally suffocating the follicle, and it's not having the power to grow as thick as it can. So there's a lot of reasons that could be. So it's really understanding what that can be, if it is breakage, new growth, or the
Yeah.
hair looking miniaturized when it's actually the scalp too. Because a lot of us too grow hair and we don't consider scalp health either, which we did do a whole talk on that last week. If you guys want to go catch that
Yeah.
replay, yeah,
Please do. Please do. Go watch our
really
last
good one.
episode, because it was excellent.
Yeah,
But the thing is that, whenever we see those short hairs, as you mentioned, I mean, you have to look at it from the different perspective from what could be happening, right? So usually the first thing that I like to do is I like to watch the tip of those short hairs. Are they blunt? Are they taper? Or are they thin? Because usually new growth will show as a thinner tip. It has a thinner tip. So if it has that thin tip, then usually it will be new growth. Now, of course, the main thing that I get to see with my patients is that they become desperate because they see that the new growth is thinner than what it was before. And I want to explain something about that because unfortunately, whenever we talk about hair loss experience, if the hair was replaced or was basically has shed before its due time, we need to consider that the hair growth cycle has been affected. And by it, what I'm saying is that if the hair has a life cycle of, for females, for instance, is about 2,000 days, right? And this is an average. Thank you. Thank you. You have an average of about 2,000 days on the anagen phase, right? And then it goes to transition into the catagen phase until it goes to telogen, which lasts about 100 days, right? So anything that could drive that anagen phase to stay shorter than what it should. So instead of growing, let's say 2,000 days, it grows about 1,500 days, right? Now you have shortened that cycle for about 500 days. So what's going to happen? That the hair that grows into the next cycle will be of about 1,500 days, not 2,000 days, but 1,500 days. And what does that mean? What that means is that the hair that's going to be growing actually is going to look thinner and eventually shorter if if the precipitating factors that causes the hair to actually be shed before its due time are present, or new events are being present when that new hair starts to grow. And that causes the hair to become thinner, thinner, thinner every time. Now, here's the problem. Whenever those cycles keeps getting thinner over time and extends to, let's say, a period of a couple of years, well, my friends, we're talking about possibly entering into the scenario of hair miniaturization. Okay, because the follicle has been going through so many lapses of hair shedding before its due time that now the follicle is actually beginning to stay shorter. So it is very common, and of course I can understand why many people who are suffering from hair loss, they become so desperate because yes, I'm growing new hair as I'm shedding, which, you know, a lot of people can, they don't understand this. They think that if my hair is shedding, then why am I growing new hair? And what you need to understand is, when did that shedding actually started? Because you may be noticing the shedding now, and maybe you're noticing the new growth now, but that shedding actually started about what? About 200, maybe 150 days before, and you didn't even realize it. That's why you see new growth today, and you're still seeing shedding today. Okay, and now this is very incomprehensible for a lot of people, but you need to realize that each follicle has its own signature cycle. Each follicle has its own DNA. And you need to realize that the reason why my pinky finger grows where the pinky finger grows is because there's a gene that says pinky grow here, not here. Okay, or here. And that's the thing, you know, and the same thing goes for the follicles. The follicle that grows on the sides is not the same follicle that will grow on the top, that will grow on the back. Each follicle has a unique location. Thus, the lifespan cycle for each follicle is different. Okay, they might be similar, but they're different. This is why we are able to shed hair and still maintain a look, because if all of our follicles shed at the same time, every human being will be bald every 4 years or so. Okay, I hope this makes sense for a lot of people, and I like to break it down this way because, you know, it shows you why the cycle is so tricky to understand, and why, particularly whenever we're facing situations that could be driven by telogen effluvium, becomes so fluid and so hard to understand. Anything you want to add on that, Carrie, before we move on to the next thing?
No, I love that you talked about that because I'm constantly talking about the hair armies, and that's I call them hair armies. There's different armies
That's
out
what they are.
there.
So she says, I feel like I have no growth, but they're all short. They're still short. And then she says, I'm starting to feel like I have androgenetic alopecia. But I have been to 3 doctors and they all seen my scalp and they say it's 100% telogen effluvium. This is interesting because for a lot of people, they have a problem trying to differentiate from androgenetic alopecia and telogen effluvium. And yet some patients might experience both of those at the same time. Can you talk to us about that a little bit, Carrie?
Yeah, sorry, I was processing in my head how to talk to it about this one too, because there's a lot of other factors that I want to jump in before we go forward. So restate that question, please.
No. Basically, the people have a lot of trouble differentiating androgenetic alopecia from telogen effluvium. Yet sometimes they will have both of them at the same time. So, what are some of the key factors that you may want to take into consideration when you're trying to differentiate whether you have one or the other, or maybe you have both at the same time?
Yeah. Well, key factors first is analyzing the hair. Now, I often see this in no matter where you are. I find that a lot of people think that there's only one type of hair loss when there's actually more than one type, and we're treating one type of hair loss and that's it. And so when you're treating the wrong type of hair loss, you could trigger other situations as well. But when I have clients that are coming in with telogen effluvium or androgenetic alopecia or both, and how to differentiate the both, it's first analyzing. I like to analyze. I do a pole test and I check to see if there's a bulb on the end of the hair. And I see how many ends of the hair have the white bulb on the end. Because if there's a lot, usually that is a red flag for me, saying that they are having more telogen effluvium than anything. Because I find in most cases, I'm going to put that in quote, most cases, androgenetic alopecia happens over time, not as quick as like a telogen effluvium, or it'll be more of a quick in the moment situation. But like I said, in cases. But then I'll also look before I was re-educated on the miniaturization of hair. I would say, well, if they had miniaturization, I'd automatically go to androgenetic alopecia. But now with the new science and new research that we have, we're realizing that there's hairs that do look like their explanation or miniaturized as well, happening from telogen effluvium, and a lot of it happens to do with scalp health. So now when I look at that, I'm really considering scalp health as well. So if they have a really good healthy scalp, no inflammation, no buildup or anything, and they're still having those miniaturizations, then I'll be like, okay, this might be more of the androgenetic alopecia than it is with the telogen effluvium. So I consider all of those factors when I'm looking, and I ask those questions. How's your scalp feeling? Is your scalp feeling, like your scalp plays a huge factor in the hair growth and how it's going to come, right? Next thing that I'll look at is obviously history. Is it in your family? If it is androgenetic alopecia, I'll ask those questions. But I often too see a lot of people who may have the DNA for androgenetic alopecia, but doesn't mean that they have it. And don't forget, I specialize in epigenetics. And so if you have a very good, strong understanding of epigenetics, you could change the outcome of that too. So I don't know. It's asking all the right questions, right? And really determine what's going on. And also to asking if anything happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks or 3 to 5 weeks. So if you think that it's androgenetic alopecia and telogen effluvium, but you've had some high contributing factors that could have caused a stress trigger in your body physically, mentally, or emotionally that could have caused telogen effluvium, that could be a factor too, or it might show up as androgenetic alopecia, but you're like, well, in the last 3 to 5 weeks, I had a hardcore diet, or I got in a car accident, or I had stress at school, or I had a trigger to cause telogen effluvium. And that could really rule it out too and be like, no, you know what? The chances of it being a trigger from telogen effluvium versus a long-term androgenetic alopecia, it's something to consider, right? So.
Definitely. One of the things that I also like to consider is, there are a couple of general rules when it comes to androgenetic alopecia. And the first one usually is about hereditary, your family history. Is there a true family history of hair loss, particularly for androgenetic alopecia? Now, of course, there are some cases, as Carrie was mentioning, where epigenetics play a role and where no family history is found, yet that person might actually be experiencing androgenetic alopecia. Those are the exceptions to the rule, right? So in vast majority of cases, we want to rule out. I mean, is there really family history? That's the first and main thing. Then the second one is, do we have true miniaturization? As Kerry was mentioning, when we use a scope, usually we see signs of hairs getting shorter. Now, not necessarily because of now we understand now because of the new research that not because it is short hairs doesn't necessarily mean and that because they're thinner that they're actually miniaturizing, because miniaturization, as we know, is a process that can only be seen when we measure the length of the follicle. But if we're not able to measure the length of the follicle, of course, we'll be looking for signs like, for instance, if what I'm looking with the scope is a generalized thinning, or is it particular thinning for a few pieces of hair. And that's something that gives you kind of the idea that they might be a possibility for miniaturization rather than just hair thinning in general in a particular area. Okay, so those are the type of things that usually we looked at. Now, in the case of telogen effluvium, of course, what we need to consider is the time frame. When did it started? And as I mentioned before, maybe this lady didn't see it that she started to lose her hair a couple of months before, but it is now that she started to seeing it, because she mentioned that she's seeing new growth. Yet, again, she's not able to pinpoint why, as she's still losing the hair and seeing the new growth at the same time. So usually as trichologists, one of the things that we do is we like to look a bit further. So usually science tells us to look up to 6 months since today, right? If today you show up to the clinic, we look at 6 months from today, or the moment that you mentioned that you started losing the hair, right? So that particular moment when you said, okay, I started losing my hair, let's say in January, so we're going to be looking at last summer. But I also like to include a couple extra months behind. So I usually like to go back to as far as a year or maybe 9 months ago from that moment when you started losing your hair. And it's going to be very hard because sometimes live events we don't take into account, and we do not make I don't know, a big deal out of it. Um, so usually we say something like, "Well, I don't remember. Nothing ever happened to me last year, but many things happened." So I usually like to, when I make questions to my patients, I like to, make them remember. So how was Christmas last year? Um, did any did you experience any loss in the family during that time? Do you remember how was work back then? Because Christmas season can be very hectic for a lot of people who work in industries that Christmas is when they have the most amount of work, right? So I like to engage in the conversation, trying to make them remember and see, if that season, for instance, a lot of people during Christmas, that's the season that they go all out in eating whatever they shouldn't be eating during the rest of the year. So I know for a fact that maybe Christmas is a time where people, they like to eat more of the things, that they really shouldn't. For instance, over here in Puerto Rico, it's all about pork. We love our pork on Christmas, right? Yeah, I mean, we can have pork all year long, but when it comes to Christmas, we definitely want to get that crispy pork. Oh my god, my mouth just went water. But then again, it's about the things that makes us tick, right? So it's an investigation process, and we can never go as, no, I don't remember anything. No, no, no. You know, take your time, try to remember, because it is important to determine a point of origin, or at least the most closest to it. And if we're able to pinpoint an event, whether it was a digestive issues, changes in our diet, changes in the medication, any illness, any stress or eventful situations in our life, those events could have triggered. And we need to follow it up as we have that event, and let's say in January, then we hit another one in February, yet another one in March. Then when it comes to telogen fluvium, you have to remember that once that event has triggered hair loss. Any other events along the way can keep the ball rolling and keep that telogen effluvium continuous. This is why you see a lot of people when they talk about stress, they will say, if I keep talking about my hair, my stress is not going to go away. I'm going to keep losing my hair. And you're right, because once that hair shedding has started, you need to try to draw back everything that is still making that telogen fluid active. And if it's because you're still worrying too much about it, it's definitely something that you need to talk about. It's definitely something that you need to treat, definitely something that you need to manage. And, when it comes to stress, there's a whole bunch of things that we could do about it. Now, Carrie, walk us a little bit about stress, because you're an expert on stress.
Yeah, well, I could talk about stress management all day. Yeah, stress. A lot of people, when I talk to people, like, oh, I'm not stressed, everything's good. But oftentimes, when you're living in such a place of like a chronic state of um, go, 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 and it becomes a chronic state, it becomes normal to you. And so, of course, it doesn't seem abnormal for you. And of course, that stress, you're just like, well, I'm not stressed because it's your norm. But the thing is you're still carrying that. It's just like, like if you were to hold a mug full of water over time, even though it's not that heavy, over time, holding that mug's going to get heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier, and eventually cause your arm to get really sore and cause tension. Same thing with stress. You're carrying that stress and you don't think it's heavy at that time, but it does start to build up. And stress shows up in various areas. It shows up in mental stress. It shows up in, the way you respond to the world around you. It shows up in anything you absorb and consume. So intake stress. It could be physical stress. So maybe it's, for me as a hairdresser, I had a lot of blockages here and caused a lot of stress, and blockages causing sinus infections and poor oxygen circulation, which also contributes to stress on the body. There's also trigger stress or trauma stress. So something that, you may be having a really good day and all of a sudden you run into your ex that triggers you. And it has a ripple effect. So it's understanding where those triggers might come, and those triggers is what changes how your cortisols, your dopamines, your serotonins are going to be distributed. And now, when we're such in a world where we're always living in a chronic state mind, especially in a state where we're always chasing dopamine over purpose, and that's like watching YouTube, being on Facebook, catching up what's going on, and having FOMO because we're going to miss out the latest reel or the latest TikTok video. That is creating a poor distribution of the dopamines in your body, causing you to live in a chronic state, causing stress, which also
Or
causes
crypto entry.
or crypto entry. All of it. It all adds up. And like it's okay in small amounts, and it's actually really healthy in small amounts, but you have to have the discipline to control it. It's when you let it take over your body. And especially when we see kids, like we're seeing an increase in hair loss in kids as young as 9, 10, 11, 12, because of the anxiety and the stress that they're creating from chasing dopamine over purpose, causing stress. So it's understanding where it is coming from and being open-minded to that. Just because you're told one thing doesn't mean you can't be open to understanding how other ways it could be contributing. And that's where people like us or people who are constantly studying are finding out where those triggers might be coming from. Psychologists, trichologists, doctors, and really understanding what are those triggers? What is stress? How do we manage it? How do we fix it? And the first key is finding out what it is and where it's coming from, and then figuring out how you're going to work with it.
Definitely. Now, I want to keep on this case because I'm talking about stress. This lady, she says that in 2018, she was pregnant and she gave birth on February 2019. She was breastfeeding and she got underweight for 2 years. And she says that after that pregnancy, she lost about 50% of her hair. And she said that it lasted for about 4 months. Then she got pregnant again in 2022 and then she gave birth on July 2023. And she was still, then when she was breastfeeding again, then she got underweight again. Then on January of 2025, she started losing her hair again. Now, we know that, just for the fact of the things that we have been reading on this post, we see a lot of stress, of course, because, again, if you have kids, you know what that means, particularly if you have young kids. And again, the post partum telogen effluvium effect, which is, something that I have many females who, after their first post telogen effluvium, postpartum telogen effluvium, that telogen effluvium carries over and stays for a couple of years sometimes, causing what is called a chronic telogen effluvium, and they sometimes they don't get to recover at all until they properly treat their telogen effluvium. Now, Carrie, you're a mother. You understand this scenario.
Well, it's funny. I laugh, and it's funny. My heart is racing right now because I see her. Because it sounds like she's literally describing what happened to me too. Because I nursed for a long time. My kids are they're about the same age apart. I lost a lot of weight from nursing, and thank goodness I have a husband who was a trained chef in his previous career that kept my calories up. But if I didn't, I probably would have been a lot more depleted than I was. Because when you're breastfeeding, you lose on average about 500 calories a day. If I was told that was correct. So when you're a female, we automatically think after we have a baby, we need to get back to the size that we were, but we're also trying to take care of our kids. But the thing is, when you're nursing, you're also, the nutrients that you're intaking are also going to that child. So you're depleted still in those nutrients. So you've got to make sure you're eating enough nutrients for yourself and that child. And so when you're not eating enough of that and you're still trying to focus on exercise or trying to get back to the way you were, you're actually doing the reverse effect. And so you want to make sure you're still getting the right nutrients. And even my doctor even said when I was taking all the supplements for when I was pregnant, she said, don't just stop. I want you to kilter off and balance it out, because if you stop, you are going to lose your hair. And so that's the same thing with nursing, is when you're nursing, you got to make sure you're still getting in the proper nutrient intake. And it's not just little snacks here or salads. It's getting high protein, high healthy fats. It's making sure you're getting those to replace. And she also talked about gray hair. Well, you need those proteins to create the melanin for the hair as well. So if you're not eating a high protein diet, or maybe you are vegan, or if you're vegetarian, is making sure you're eating those foods that are rich in high healthy fats and healthy proteins to make sure that you're balancing out, or taking a supplement for that. And so if you're not getting that, of course, you're going to have breakage, you're going to have hair loss, and you're going to have gray hairs coming in prematurely and causing all that weight loss. Now you're losing hair from the weight loss, you're losing hair from lack of nutrients, and also too, when we are pregnant, we don't shed all that hair too. So our hair builds, and that's why your hair looks so beautiful when we are pregnant. It's because you're not shedding it, because the nutrients that the hair would usually typically use to create that energy.
Thank God for oxytocin.
all the nutrients that the body typically would give to the hair to grow new hair, it's going to the child. And so, of course, it naturally starts to keep the hair more in an catagen stage than a telogen stage. So then that way the hair stays and the mom still feels beautiful and stays positive. There's a whole system towards that, which we could talk on another day. But then eventually, once you do have the child and it doesn't need as much nutrients, that's when the hair is going to start shedding. So the hair that had built up over that whole 9-month period of being pregnant is now going to shed on top of your normal hair cycle. So it's going to feel overwhelming and be like, oh my gosh, I'm losing hair, when it's not. Then you also are dealing with balancing your hormones.
Yep.
Yeah. Then you're dealing with balancing your hormones, which is a whole other thing. So hormones, you got to make sure you're having good, proper sleep, which you're probably losing from getting up and nursing and making sure the baby's okay. And then stress on top of that, contributing to your staying awake. That is going to cause issues on hormones. And they even say men, women, hormones, if you have unbalanced hormones, it's usually probably because poor quality sleep, when you need quality sleep. Then the next one is the hormone balance is you're not, of course, feeding it, just like we talked about, having quality, nutritious meals to help nourish that. And when your hormones are out of balance, you lose the hair here. You often see women in premenopausal, which I'm becoming premenopausal. You can see I'm in that stage where I'm starting to lose that, but that's the stages of life. Same with, pregnancy. You're going to lose that. You just went through a big hormonal change creating a baby, and whether you had a male or female, they also say more testosterone shows up in a woman who is pregnant with a male, and with estrogen with a female. So you're playing also with the factors of the estrogen or testosterone from whether you're having a male or female. That's a whole other factor. So a lot of those things to consider. Now, one thing which I was concerned, and I'm concerned with a lot of people who have babies right away, as soon as they have babies, they aren't educated on how the hair loss happens and how after you have the baby or while you're nursing or taking supplements, and they stop taking supplements, and then they don't know the adverse effect of what could happen if you don't do if you're not aware of that, causing that hair loss, which creates a whole other ripple effect of all the stress, but is I forget what I was gonna go at. Is then they go to the doctor and right away are like, oh, I'm having hair loss, and start putting everything in the sink in to fix it, when it's just the process of life going and happening and making sure that you're nourished. But the thing is, if you start feeding it what it doesn't need and medicating it what it doesn't need, you're going to cause more reactions. So this young girl, I see her, she's using minoxidil, which no, surgery could go deeper on that, but you don't have hair loss. So you're medicating the wrong type of hair loss, causing other can of worms to come and happen. Sergio, you go on that one.
Yeah, because here's the thing, as you were mentioning, there's a lot of things going on in this particular case. Of course, we understand that there's hormonal issues. We understand that there's maybe a lack of nutrients at the same time going on, which is perfectly normal after a post-pregnancy. And of course, because you're nursing, all right? So you need to replenish. Now, unfortunately, this is not something that could be described as someone who may be experiencing androgenetic alopecia. And yet, out of desperation, a lot of people, they think that I'm going to start using minoxidil. And a lot of people who had experienced telogen effluvium might say, well, I used minoxidil and it worked for me. Bravo if it worked for you. But let me tell you something. Whenever we start using minoxidil and your cycle is not properly managed, you're going to create a new cycle when you start using the minoxidil, which is why a lot of people, when they start using minoxidil, they create this dread shedding, right? And it's amazing shedding that people experience when they start using minoxidil. Why? Because you are, again, interrupting the cycle, the one that you already entered. To re-enter into new cycles, you're going to be pushing out those hairs that you may be already be growing new, and we're going to be pushed out to start a new cycle with the minoxidil.
In layman's terms, it gets worse before it gets better.
Exactly. So the thing is that, minoxidil may not be a help at all. It could actually make it worse. Now, here's the thing. People experiencing telogen effluvium. If you had finished your cycle and you start using minoxidil, well, guess what? You started using it in the same period of time where new hair is about to grow, and you will see what? That the shedding stops because it's already stopped, and you start seeing the new growth, and you see, wow, minoxidil helped me a lot. Unfortunately, it just happened
that way.
Yeah, exactly, because it hit on the right time of the cycle. All right. So a lot of people they do it and they do it, and they get the results, but just by chance, not because they actually intended to do it that way. So when you see about what actually minoxidil does, it just increases blood circulation. And if your blood is rich in nutrients, of course it will help. But if you're using minoxidil and your blood is deficient in nutrients, it's not going to work on you. So the only people who actually benefit from minoxidil are the ones who are actually suffering from androgenetic alopecia. And even then, there's a new study right now. There's a new test that is a genetic test you use with the saliva. And what it does, it shows you if your genes tell you that actually minoxidil will help you or not. Because unfortunately, now we know that a certain group of people who do actually have androgenetic alopecia do not perform well with minoxidil. Newsflash, baby.
I love science. I love science.
Newsflash. Not everyone on minoxidil who actually need it will actually see the results. And just because of the genetics, it's all wrong. And the same thing goes with finasteride, Propecia, dutasteride, spironolactone. You might need it, but it might not work on you. So there's a test out there. It is quite expensive right now over here. The company was selling this test to my customers. They were charging almost about $1,000 for it, which is ridiculous at this point.
There's
Um,
actually other tests that you could do. I know in Edmonton here, there is a guy who has, I would have to pull it up, where you could test against a whole bunch of medication. I think there's 100, like thousands, like 100,000 plus medications, whether you're taking
I
Tylenol
know
or
it's a new technology, but as a new technology, we know that at first, before people actually start, how we say, adopting the technology, is going to be expensive. So
well,
eventually,
this
I know
one's
that,
not
that I
bad.
know
It's
that the price will drop, in a few, and
well,
hopefully,
in Canada though, it was like $4.97, which is like $2 in American. Um, so we'll have to find that one.
okay, we need to see
Yeah,
where we can get that test cheaper.
yeah,
Um,
or scam exchange.
because a lot, yeah, our people need it. Our people need to understand whether the minoxidil will actually help them or not. Anyhow, going back to the process again, not everyone needs minoxidil, so be careful about it. Okay, and if you started using it and you see great results with it, then perfect. But in a case like this friend of ours, this girl, I will say stop using minoxidil because your situation is not meant for minoxidil. So I will stop it immediately. Okay. And we'll go back to other solutions and definitely try to work on the um, the hormones, because she's also mentioning that she's having problems with her period. She says that she's having her period for 2 weeks, then 1 week with no bleeding, and then bleeding again. So definitely, I will suggest to go to your gynecologist, to your obstetrician, and see what's going on with your hormones, and do that quickly, because again, things can be developing faster than we understand. And unfortunately, in the medical world, sometimes the doctor sees you today and they don't get to see the results up in a couple of weeks or months sometimes until they see you again. And sometimes medical conditions can develop quickly, so you want to get that as soon as possible. All right. So to our friend here, she's from Europe. I'm not going to say the country, but definitely, you want to look for help. And another note, and she says, I feel like I see uh, so many others who struggle with hair loss, uh, and I know the doctors here, not saying the place, have no idea what they're doing. They told me to come back if all of my hair was gone. That's terrible. That's terrible. If that's the type of medicine that is going on in around you, I would say look broader, look abroad, move. If you need to catch a train, go to another country, do that. But definitely something is wrong in that area, because that's not a doctor-like recommendation. That's irresponsible. To tell a patient that is losing their hair, come back when you have lost all of your hair, that really makes me mad. That makes me want to punch people in the face. Really, if a doctor ever says something to me like that, I will flip the desk in a second. You don't say things like that to a patient. All right. And please forgive me if my references are too violent, but you catch my drift. It's something that you don't say to a patient. All right. If you do not know how to properly treat it, you refer that patient to another physician, but you don't tell them, come back when you have lost all of your hair. I don't want to say the words because I get mad and they will start using improper language here. So, uh, but just cancel that doctor. All right. Unfollow that doctor. Don't go visit that clinic again. Go to another place. That's it. That's it. Because and this is unfortunate. This is unfortunate. And this what it says right there is that doctor is an egomaniac. That's what it says. Because if they're not able to refer you to the proper physician, to the proper specialist, then they are all about themselves. and they want to treat you, and because they cannot treat you, they don't know how to treat you, and they start saying stupid things like that. Okay, I'm gonna call myself down. Carrie, take over, please, before I start
Yeah,
saying things
no,
the wrong way.
it's making sure trust your gut too. Like if it doesn't feel right, like I'm always telling people, follow your spidey senses. If it feels off, it's probably off, type of thing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. There's no one quick fix either. It's that's just the way things have been going. There's some really great doctors too out there that really know their stuff and are there to help. But then there's also the ones that it's all about, they know everything and it's only what they say and that's it. That's all. That's all, folks. See you later. It's
yeah,
unfortunate, but that's the way it is. But there are some really good doctors. I have some phenomenal ones that, go above and beyond and that really do care. And yeah. But as trichologists, like that's why we created the hair wire, is to, because we're about collaboration over competition and bringing in the right people. Right now, we are on the trajectory of pulling in those right people, and we'll be posting a lot of their content information in the next little while as well. And for the professionals, other materials, so they could get in touch with each other as well and work together, because it's a community thing, right? So.
yeah.
But anyways, we should move on to this next comment. Like we have one person on here posting on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, Shannon, I'm just talking about you. Yeah, she goes, yes, trust your gut and ask for second or third opinions. Yeah, 100%. And that's the way it is. That's you take ownership of your own health. I
Yeah.
find I teach this in my program personally, is the amount of people who don't have a relationship with themselves, who don't know how to articulate what they're having, or don't know how to advocate for themselves, or just expect somebody to tell them what to do. And I have had that as a trichologist, where clients have come in and expected me to essentially hold their hand through the whole process, when I gave them the formula and then next is for them to do it. But it's not for me to call you every 10 days and be like, hey, are you following this? Are you following that? Unless you pay me to do that, I will do that. I will coach you for sure. However, you can't put that lack of accountability on us either. It's, taking ownership and that just
Amen.
self too for everything. And, and education is key. The knowledge is power. Even Einstein and Bob Marley, like all the, a lot of these people out there, I've always said knowledge is power. So, and trust that spidey sense, know your gut. So, okay, I'm going to answer these questions.
Sure.
What's the ideal scalp supplement routine for those who have emerged from the telogen effluvium phase caused by COVID, then complicated by hormones and stress, and are seeing new growth and less hair fall? Okay, let me process this for a minute.
For me, this is very simple. There is no ideal supplement rather than the one that your body actually needs. And to understand what your body needs, you need to perform a couple of tests, whether it's blood tests or an epigenetic testing, that will show about which nutrients need to be optimized in your body. Once you understand the nutrients that need to be optimized, then we will know which nutrients should you be taking. Because without the proper information, you're just going to be thrown in the dark. Okay. And you're just going to be guessing as to what type of supplement should I be using. So in that sense, what I would recommend is get properly tested. That way you will know which nutrients you will need. And of course, whenever we talk about a telogen effluvium caused by COVID, my God, yes, a lot of things can happen, and a lot of things in our body will turn to different directions that we still do not understand the complexities and how far does it go, not only because of the people who experienced the COVID itself, but because of the people who actually got vaccine during COVID. And there's a lot of things that we still don't know, and we talk a lot about the spike protein and about spike protein detox, but the fact is that we see a lot of irreversible damages after COVID and after COVID shots. So, and I'm not saying this as I'm not protecting anything, and I'm not protecting anyone. This is just the way it is, and vast majority of people who had COVID did not experience a thing. There's a lot of people who had COVID and, they're fine. They're perfect. The millions of people who took the vaccine and they're okay. But there's a group of people who actually had it the other way. And we need to be sensitive about those who actually had issues with it. Okay, it's not the vast, this is not the vast majority of people in the world, but there's a percentage of people who actually had experienced bad things afterwards. Okay, so we need to take that into consideration. So one of the things that happened during COVID, then that definitely was the telogen fluid, and a very bad telogen fluid. Now, once we corrected the deficiencies in the body, that telogen fluvium usually goes away and becomes milder. And it's all about working with the antigen phase in the follicle to make that hair grow healthier and thicker. So definitely something that you want to consider. Before I move to the next question inside that same question, Carrie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I actually have a few. Hold on, I'm just making sure I get that in my head what I want to talk, because there's two key points. Yeah, okay. So with the telogen effluvium too with COVID, because remember too, always say COVID there, or sorry, telogen effluvium, there could be more than one contributing factor. Is it mental stress, change of medication, or your diet or health, any of that? So we can't, it's understanding, is the stress causing the telogen effluvium from being shut down? Like I know myself, I couldn't work behind the chair, and of course that was stressful. And then of course where a lot of us are still playing catch up after COVID, and a lot of us have also lost our businesses after COVID. So is that telogen effluvium caused by the stress, or is it caused by COVID itself, or is it caused by the vaccine itself? Like there's so many factors to consider when it comes to COVID complications, and stress affects hormones and stress. Like it affects it all. Hormones is affected by stress. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's really having a clear understanding of where it stemmed from. And you could have the same amount of hair loss from a simple fever from food poisoning. So it's making sure and just not pointing fingers and saying it's, because you're not going to get those answers unless you know deeply what is that trigger that caused that hair loss. Was it the fever? Was it the needle? Was it the stress? Was it losing your job? Was it losing someone? Was it the lack of vitamin D? There's all those factors to consider. Now, when it comes to supplements, we also push this, and if Pisan was here, I know she'd be all over this right now.
Oh yeah.
We find a lot of times people will over supplement, and you can over supplement and cause everything in moderation. And if your body needs it. So if your body needs, like myself, I have done the testing. I do need B12 supplement support because my body and my DNA does not absorb it. So I do take a supplement on a regular basis, but I have been tested for that with my hematologist and the team that have support me with my blood condition. And yes, I have a rare blood cancer, so I understand my blood and how to read blood that way. So, but when it comes to other supplements, it's not just taking and be like, oh, I heard this, and throwing it all in the sink and taking it, because you could cause issues. And you see a lot of cases with people taking hair supplements now having liver and kidney failure because they're taking supplements that have now become toxic in their body. So you got to make sure that you're taking it when you need it and how you need it and if you need it. And so I'm always pushing people to, before they even take a supplement, find the foods that are rich in the supplement that you need and start observing your body on when you're taking those foods, like or when you're craving certain foods. Like if you're craving garlic, are you craving because you want it or you need it? If I eat garlic because I want it, oh, you don't want to be around me. I'm stanky. Like, don't go near me. My husband won't even sleep with me in the same bed because I'm that smelly. But if I eat it because I need it, oh, I could eat so much garlic you wouldn't even know I ate it. It's because my body needs it. And so it's really understanding. So like I know when I'm craving strawberries or cherries. Actually, this is a good one. I haven't been able to get my B12 shot. Well, cherries are high in vitamin B12s. And I haven't been able to get in my regular needle, which I take every month because of the car show. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't get enough cherries. The amount of cherries I have been eating, it is crazy. And of course it's cherry season. And I started to look, I'm like, oh my goodness, to my husband, I'm like, I know I'm craving cherries so bad. It's because I forgot to get my needle. So what I'm going to do after this show is to go get my injection. So, but it's really understanding and being self-aware of your body. And like I said before, the amount of people who don't have a relationship with their body anymore, or who they are and why they do things, or why they're craving things, or why they're lethargic, So, I always empower people first to be empowered to understand their bodies and what they need for everything.
Definitely. Definitely. There's a second question here, and she's asking about, what about for an athlete who lives in a hot, humid climate? Sweat. Now, this is a good question, and there's a couple of things to consider. Naturally, the temperature, humidity, yes. Could these be factors that could contribute to hair loss? And the answer is yes and no. And I want to explain this because the thing is that if you have a underlying situation that could be affected by heat and humidity, then of course this could be it. Now, a lot of people like me, we live in a very tropical, humid area, and that's not actually an issue until it becomes, like, for instance, right now in the summer, we see a lot of people experiencing heat strokes, right? And we see a lot of people during the summer that experience a lot of shedding. We see that in the summer, yes. Why? Again, because of the high temperatures, because there's a tendency to produce more sweat and even to produce even more sebum. So definitely, if you have a sebum-related issue and the temperatures are causing you to drive even more sebum to your scalp, that's going to be an issue that could drive and cause a maybe a short span of telogen fluid. That's something that could happen. Now, you mentioned about being an athlete, and I want to stress something out. There is a thing, and it's called being burnout. And sometimes athletes, they would overtrain, and that's something where your muscles become deficient in protein, where you're burning so much that you're actually eating out your muscles. And when that happens, your body becomes deficient on proteins. So you need to replenish those proteins. And sometimes you need to, you know, cut back on your training program a little bit till your body catches up, and then you can keep growing on your program. And I remember when I used to be a national athlete, and I would train 2 times a day, over 4 hours of training daily. I used to train like that, so I know what I'm talking about in that sense. And I used to the calorie consumption that I had over that period of time. I mean, it was massive. I would eat tons of food, and I was in the best shape of my life. Oh my God, I remember those days. But then again, that was then, and but you understand that the principles as an athlete, as a top tier athlete, um, there's a thing where you could overtrain, and even for people who are not top tier athletes, but they overworked, as when they sometimes people, they want to skip steps, and they want to train in a month what they should be doing in about 3 months. So take it slow, go by your routine and have a professional trainer go with you over the steps, so to make sure that you're doing it right, that you're not overtraining your muscles, and that you're not causing an injury.
Again, too much of something. It's all about balance.
Yeah, it's all about balance, definitely. Carrie, we're about out of time. Anything you want to add before we go?
You know what? This was a lot of fun, you guys, and I love that we talked. I think we should go deeper on this topic again. Is like treating the wrong hair loss. But I just want to remind people too, the first win for you guys is not the new growth, it's stopping the hair loss from happening.
Yes.
So celebrate that win. Just because you don't have the new growth coming in, but celebrate that the hair has stopped shedding when you do, because that is a huge feat and a win. So take that, celebrate it. Now, if you want to learn more from us, come follow us on the Hair Wire. We give tons of free advice and free information. And if you go to thehairwire.com or to our YouTube channel to subscribe, and you'll get notifications of different stuff. And we've broken it down on the website for the specific areas, and we're just adding and adding and adding to it as we go. Hopefully we'll have more information on each of the sections soon. But if we have section for talloid effluvium, we have a section for angionetic alopecia, we have a breakout session for scalp issues, all of it is all there. And hair fiber, how to grow your hair, how to keep your hair nourished and healthy to grow it. So go check that out. And we have another big thing coming up, which Sergio will go into, which I'm super, super thrilled about, because it might be something that you want to come in and drop your questions for us there.
Definitely. We're going to have a webinar, a free webinar for the general public And this webinar, it's all about Telagen Fluvium and all about Q&A. So we're going to be sitting for about an hour, and it's going to be all Q&As. The three of us, the trio, Sergio, Kerry, and Bisan. Yes, the three of us are going to be together. It's going to be in about 2 weeks from now, I believe was the date. Anyhow, stay connected, guys, because I forget about the dates. My
I think we said the
my
August
attention
content.
my attention deficit kicks in, and I forget about dates. But we're going to be posting it very soon, so you can start registering. We will start this registry, and you can start connecting right now. So that way, you're going to be part of this. A webinar that we're going to be having is just for 1 hour, all about Q and A's. So bring in your questions and drop a comment. So let us know what we can do to help you out. And during that hour, we want to make the most out of it, and to make sense out of Telagen Fluvium and hair loss. All right. I know this is a complicated issue, and we know that every week we talk about more than an hour sometimes, about many different things, and we sometimes we get too deep into it. But we definitely want to help out the general public, people who maybe have little to no access to professionals in their area, and they are suffering from hair loss. Maybe you're out of budget and you don't know how to manage this. Well, there's definitely simple ways that we could try, but and help you out as much as we can. But sometimes you just have to go to visit the professional. Sometimes there are no other way but to visit a professional. But if there are things that we can do for you, at least guide you into the right direction, this webinar is for you. So stay connected to the Hairwire. Visit thehairwire.com. Visit all of our social media. Follow us, comment, and subscribe. And of course, share this information, share this wealth of information that we have here at the Hairwire for you. That's it.
Yep. And if you want to be a contributor too and add content, please message us, put in the subject line contributor. We'd love to have you too, because we want to create a community with everybody involved in trichology, and we are working on that right now with everybody, who will be revealed very, very soon, of other people that we have found. But if you feel like you would like to contribute and help on the public side or the professional side or both, please let us know, because like I said, we're building this for you guys. This is a community of collaboration.
Yes.
So
Definitely. Guys, we love you all. We'll see you next week. Till then, God bless you all. Bye-bye.